Jaye Gaskiya, the convener at Take Back Nigeria, is joining me right now. Welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where should we start? The CPI.
Okay.
You know, 2018 CPI was released yesterday by Transparency International. In fact, we broke it on the show as soon as we got it. And it did tell us that Nigeria was at, or is at, because it's still ongoing, is at 144 position from 148. One will say, oh, okay, we moved 4 places. But if you still read the report down, you'll be like, oh, no, we didn't move. We are static, 27 out of 100 points. Like I said earlier, is it motion, no movement? We are just like, you know, but no movement. When you saw this, what's your own reading of it?
Yeah, okay, so the first thing is the nature of the report itself. It is what it says that it is. It is a perception index. And it is a bit different from like an actual survey of actual disposition or tendency towards corruption. So this is more a survey of what people, citizens, you know, across the board think about corruption in their country. And these citizens are politicians, they are you and I, they are government officials and the rest of that. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, so it says a lot, therefore, that when you look at all of the 16 categories and factors that were surveyed, that people's perception, that the score remained 27, that people's perception that nothing or that nothing much is being done about corruption has remained nearly the same. That's because that's what this has shown. In 2017, we scored 27 marks. Yes. In 2018, the same 27 marks. Okay, so we moved some 4 steps, you know, down. But again, it's also if you are static and other people are going back, then you can have this notion, this wrong notion that you're actually moving forward, because that's what this you know, shows. It's like we are moving forward, we are doing great. But in reality, we have remained static at 27, but some more countries have not done enough, okay? And so with the same score, we were able to move some steps up rather than, otherwise we would have been 148, the same position that we were last year. But then some countries did very badly, they went down. Their scores went down, and so that helped us to move. But in reality, to move without, exactly. So, but like you said, this is really motion without movement. You know, it's like jogging on the spot, which is what we are doing.
Now, one would say, oh, it's perception, because we're always getting that corruption, perception, what people think. Perception is a reality. In the sense that, okay, yes, it's perception reality before I go over to the next question.
In a very, what I would say is that there is a very strong connection between reality and perception. You cannot develop or form any perception without some element of a reality, without some basis in reality, and that's how the human mind works. It's like that saying, you say there can be no smoke without fire. You know, even though fire may not have come out eventually, but once you see smoke, the perception may be that, okay, there's been a fire somewhere, you know. So there is always, perceptions are always rooted in some form of reality. It may be outlandish, it may be, the way it comes out might be a lot more elastic than reality is, but it is actually really based in reality. But the more important point about perception, and particularly for corruption perception, is that it's also a measure of the confidence of citizens in their institutions. And this has nothing to do with if the institutions themselves feel and think that they are efficient. If people are not feeling the impact of your efficiency, there's no direct impact on them there, then their perception will remain that you are not efficient. And it's not a perception that you can fault. Because ultimately, whatever you do as an institution ought to have some some kind of ripple effect on the people. And so that's the basic challenge right now. People don't still trust the institutions.
Now the question is, because in all my analysis over the years, sometimes people will say, oh, Nigeria is different, Nigeria is peculiar. Yes, that's the language.
That's the language, yes.
Nigeria is peculiar. Do you also think that the perception on corruption hasn't changed over the years, especially since democracy started, and Nigerians aren't ready to shift their corruption perception? Corruption perception.
I don't think that is in fact, you see, the funny thing about that, let's quickly talk about that peculiarity first. The funny thing about that peculiarity, there's actually no clime in the world that you go to that people don't think that they are exceptional. That the people in that area don't think that they are exceptional. I mean, there's something called being an American is exceptional. Being a British is exceptional. So being Nigerian is also, exceptional. So every community of people try to explain away some of their misdeeds by a certain recourse to their exceptionality, their uniqueness, and the rest of that. But we all know, I mean, it's, I was coming down here today, for example, and at one of the traffic lights, okay? So I stopped. I mean, I know myself that I didn't think that there should be a traffic light there because I was going straight and there was no obstruction. There shouldn't be, the light shouldn't be stopping me. But I stopped, okay? Now, but many Nigerians will not stop, and many did not stop. Some even felt I was stupid.
There was a traffic light there and you stopped.
Yes, I stopped, and it stopped me, and I stopped. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people just went. They just ignored it because I mean, So, and then they would think that you are stupid. Now, Now, but you see, okay, it happens in Nigeria. It would happen anywhere in the world. But you know why? In other places, if you beat the traffic light, you get penalized. You get penalized for it.
By the time you're getting home, you're getting your
ticket. You're getting your ticket. So, so that's what discourages it. So we can say, oh, it's a Nigerian thing. Nigerians will not obey that. But if there are penalties that are going to be, universally and uniformly enforced, people are going to conform. So that's the point about.
But is it that, now talking about this traffic thing, is it that there are no penalties? There could be penalties there. The thing is that perhaps there's no infrastructure to also enforce that penalty.
Absolutely.
Because, for example, if you beat the traffic in the United States, a camera would have just taken you. You don't even need a policeman to be there.
No, you don't need anybody standing there. Yes,
to be there. By the time they send you $300.
Yes, for just beating the traffic, like you will understand it.
And you know what it is to make $300 in the US and pay your bills.
Absolutely.
But for this kind of example, which you have said now, it's the institution has put the traffic light there. It is our duty to obey whether we like it or not. If that light says stop, shows the red sign. But Nigerians will still beat it. At the end of the day, if you ask those Nigerians that still beat that traffic, if the institution of which institution puts that road traffic lights now?
It's supposed to be the transport department of the
area. If they ask Nigerians now, is that institution working? The same Nigerians that are beating the traffic, we say no, it's not working.
Yeah, because
do you understand my analogy?
Yes, I understand your analogy. Yeah, but also because the reason why they say that is also because of what you have also already said. You have put that down. There's a reason why you put that down, because one, you want to control traffic, okay? But you also put penalties for a reason, because you know that those that will break the law. So it's also your duty. It's also your duty, therefore, as an institution, to put mechanisms in place that would make it possible for you to be able to enforce those penalties. Okay. And what the rest of the world is doing is that most of all of these things are moving to digital platforms, so that they reduce human participation, human interface, because the more the human interface, the more the potential for negotiation, for corruption, which is what we know happens. Even if there are traffic wardens there, what they do is that they catch you, you enter the vehicle, people negotiate, they pay money, they go away. It doesn't, that's
also a form of corruption.
Of course it is corruption. Even the traffic warden that has stopped you, that is collected, does not even know what the law says in terms of what the penalty is, in terms of what how much you are supposed to actually have been charged. He's just interested in that. Oh, you have beat this light. The two of you, you negotiate, you pay something. It doesn't go into the purse, you know, which again is corruption, facilitates, you know, corruption. And it's why people also think that their institutions are inefficient. Because if you can beat your institutions, if your institutions put safeguards and you know you can beat them, then of course you can't have confidence in those institutions.
Where does all this take us right now? Because in as much as this administration, they campaigned on 3 pillars, corruption being, that is fighting corruption being one of them, and this kind of reports are out. I think in 2017 also it came out, and this administration's response was that, oh, it's politically motivated. The report is to deface our administration, that we're doing quite a lot in fighting corruption. President Buhari's administration will just take pride in saying, oh, a lot of people right now, EFCC, which is the fighting, the crime fighting, corruption fighting organization, would say, oh, we have a lot of people on our kitty right now. What would you say should be this administration's response to this kind of report beyond what was what they told us in 2017?
I think for me, this should be like a wake-up call. Because even the report admitted and recognized the fact that certain things have been done in terms of policies, in terms of institutions, strengthening the institutions, policy frameworks, having the presidential... PACAC was actually specifically recognized by the report as a step in the right direction. And this, you know, this is just similar to the same thing to our ranking on the ease of doing business. You get to a point where you simply just, how do you call it, level out and you remain static. Because there is a limit to what tinkering with the law can do, what tinkering with institutions and so on can do. Okay, you put all of those things in place, they get you off some marks. Okay, but then it remains for the institutions to now actually be working effectively. Now we're having a situation now where we're having the different institutions, anti-corruption agencies, because of the disposition of this particular regime, have been like, they have a new life, a new energy, and the result is that they seem to be competing. Everybody is competing for who is doing the most in terms of fighting corruption, whereas they ought to be working together. So one of the biggest gaps really in the institutionally on the government side with anti-corruption fight right now is the institutions, the capacity of the institutions. I would say 2 things: the capacity of the institutions to coordinate and work together, and then the second is also their capacity to be independent of the politicians and the political authorities, because each of the institutions act and are courageous on the basis of their interpretation of the body language at the top. And so they go after this, and sometimes this new committee, the committee to trace illegally acquired properties and the rest of that too, has also been very active of late, you know, and all of that, and even going after high-profile persons and the rest of that, politically exposed persons. But again, that is also on the basis of what you think the body language is saying, who we can go after. So we need these institutions to become more independent. And this is no longer simply about their laws now. This is really about individuals, about personnel, and about politicians allowing processes to work.
Do you think that this administration is indeed fighting corruption like it says? Is that a simple yet a hard question?
Yes, very simple and extremely hard. You know, again, this administration is fighting corruption, but like every administration before it, unlike every administration before it, the tempo has increased. Okay. But like every administration before it, it is still the corrupt is the persons who can be corrupt are my enemies. My friends are unlikely to be corrupt. And so when you use that as a yardstick, then of course the perception, in fact, one of the biggest factors contribute to the perception is this perception of the fact that it is selective. And it is one of those things that you really cannot wish away. You really cannot say it's just a figment of people's imagination. They see it. When the Chief Justice of the Nigeria Supreme broke, when it broke, Sarah came out and said, Sarah and some other agents came out and said, look, what about okay? What about Bachelor? I mean, this
what about even those within
your your cabinet that are close to you, those that are actually leading your campaign, your re-election campaign? What about them? You know, and the rest of that. Exactly the same things that you have said about Odege, because nobody is exonerating him. Okay, these guys have done more. More has been said about them. You know, but yet nothing is happening. So when you act in that kind of way, then even doing the right thing seems to be like a weapon that you use against, to bring people in line, that you use against your enemies. I mean, we had a situation where I mean, this concept of come then go and sin no more. So, you know, the ones who come and join us, go and sin no more.
Okay. Now with the corruption perception index that was just released yesterday, and telling the rest of the world, oh, Nigeria, we're fighting corruption, and this administration is saying, yet we are not moving. Nigerians still think that corruption is so embedded in the system. Where does it leave us, especially from the eye of those watching us that want to do businesses with us, that want to interact with our institutions, that want to even interact with Nigerians, even as we travel like on a daily basis?
Okay. Now, and there are two dimensions to that. There is the internal and there is also the external. So there is and I'm looking at investment in general. So you're looking at even the capacity to mobilize domestic investment. And then, of course, the capacity to attract foreign direct investment. And like you have been saying in your monitoring FDI flows in your show, I mean, we have seen that we seem to have, again, also leveled out in terms of our ability to attract foreign direct investment. It's things like these. Nobody rushes into an area where there is so much uncertainty, where things are not sure, because that's what corruption does. Things are not sure. If there are rules, regulations, laws, but those laws, rules, and regulations are not going to be followed, then there is no certainty. You cannot plan. And because you cannot plan, people don't come in. And that's why when you also look at foreign direct investment, you see that the percentage distribution of it, you see most is coming from portfolio investments. I mean, those short-term investment, because that's what people can really, nobody wants to come and invest for in the long term, because you are not certain, you're not sure, you know. This was a long time ago, but then it clearly demonstrates what's been said, the experience of Virgin in Nigeria, and actually the way Richard Branson was extremely very dismissive of the Nigerian government institutions, but also of the leading political figures, because of the kind of demands that they were making, you know, that were extraneous. And he was wondering, how do businesses survive in Nigeria? And then again, then you look at the domestic investment angle, and you look at many people. One of the big reasons why small businesses and the informal sector have remained small and informal is also this lack of confidence in the formal institutions. I mean, you get registered, you go and get registered, and then you start having all of the troubles that you have never had in your life. Is it not just better to just run your business out of the loop of officialdom and just make your little? And you know that, okay, doing that, you can't have access to several other things, but yes, I'm satisfied because yes, I don't want to go through all of those things. You know, I mean, I've heard from colleagues and people who want to set up businesses or who want to go, you know, are running a small business. You want to go large scale. You are mobilizing investors, and then the kind of things that they put, you know, on your part, the kind of demands. even the legal ones, then the extraneous ones that officials who are supposed to do their duties are also expecting, and the rest of that. When you look at it, you say to yourself, no, I mean, it's not worth it. I had better just make do with what I'm doing. At least I can still pick my bills, and let's do that. But what that does for the economy is that the economy, the impact that growth of each of these sports activities is supposed to have on the economy. Is it about job creation? You know, is it about
taxes for
the government in terms of revenue that goes to the government? And the rest of that, it's lost. You know, you are unable to get that. So that's the basic, one of the biggest challenges with corruption, and with the fact that people continue to have that perception that our society is still very corrupt.
Now, with that, what you've just said, now the next question is every Nigerian a corrupt person? Okay, now
I will say this. I will say that every Nigerian is potentially exposed to corruption and potentially placed in a situation where you can then undertake a corruption. So every Nigerian, every Nigerian is placed under that. But okay, I would also say it does seem that a majority of Nigerians also get to the point where they say, okay, I don't have a choice other than to just get this done.
So you're saying that every Nigerian, or most Nigerians, or every Nigerian is placed where he or she would choose between, should I be corrupt or
absolutely.
should I be corrupt?
I don't think actually, well, from my experience, I don't think that there's any Nigerian living who has not been placed in a situation where you have had to reflect.
Now, the question will be, what is also corruption? Because, you know, I'm also torn between, because if we are talking about corruption, most Nigerians will be thinking, oh, the politicians, oh, these big guys, oh, the upper class. But even as middle class or as the low echelon of society, are you also exposed to certain things that you would have done ordinarily, really, but you are forced, not even forced, you may be forced, or you may just take a bribe, or you may just take like wha, as they say, or what do they call it? Yes. Exactly. What else? They should be telling me what they call them, you know, as in, yes, and all of that, and say, oh, Oga, give me something. Or you could even see a security person, because we go through these things every day. They want to open the gate. Yours is to pass through the gate, but the security person, be it a private security, yes, will be expecting that, madam, drop money for me. Is that also part of it?
Yeah, because you see, if there is an expectation and that expectation is like fulfilled and it becomes like practice, it is really corrupt practice. I also know we also come from a culture where giving gifts and accepting gifts it's part of the culture. But where do you draw the line? Exactly. So a gift is supposed to be something that is voluntary. That's what a gift is supposed to be. And not
forcing me to give that. And be greeting me 100 times.
Yes. Not putting me in a position that makes me feel like, okay, you actually want a gift from me. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so every Nigerian is placed in that kind of situation. And for most ordinary Nigerians, let's leave the politicians, it's at the point of accessing service delivery. You want to renew your driver's license. You want to renew your passport. You want to, something is happening, your children need some sort of registration somewhere and the rest of that. Those are the points where, you know, I was discussing with some friends. I said, have you noticed, I'm sure, you know, that things that can be done and done quite easily, okay, that the average Nigerian would allow, so you go to a place where you're supposed to be able to just walk in and make your payments. The personnel in the office will now, that's their job, that particular unit, that's what they're supposed to do. But then they will now put there, okay, that you can only come 1 hour of a day. Meanwhile, that particular department, that's the only thing is supposed to receive that. Now, what does that do? What that does is that it means that during that 1 hour, quite a number of people who require that service would now come in. So there will be a queue, there will be chaos, and then there will be people who are impatient, who want to go quickly,
who want to do, and give money,
of course. And so it creates the environment that now enables corruption to happen. If you will see some of the officers who are actually just sitting down, they are watching the body language of people. They are saying those who are impatient or those who they think can afford extra. And then they will just approach you and say, oh, we can get this done for you, you know, that kind of thing. So, and I'm sure most Nigerians have been placed in that kind of situation.
The next question, and I think on a final note, should be, what are the causes of corruption? Because I've talked about this over the years, you know. And I also take a look at it in an in-depth form, in the sense that in as much as we're talking corruption, what breeds it? For example, the wage structure, the salary structure, the take-home, and all of that. Do they also actually breed this kind of thing?
Absolutely. David, there is no way we can actually fight corruption without talking about a decent wage, the economic progress of citizens. Because if your take-home pay, in the language of us, cannot really take you home, then of course you have to cut corners. In fact, most Nigerians are magicians as far as making a living is concerned. Most Nigerians are magicians. You wonder, on this salary, and I'm not talking about people, you know, living ostentatiously. You're just saying that, okay, look at Abuja. Look at rents in Abuja and the rest of that. And you wonder, how do people manage and pay rents in Abuja? People are really bad. So those kind of things predispose people. That's why I said every Nigeria is potentially placed in a situation where every day you just have to reflect and you choose the less of the evil. So we need to improve on that if we want to, you know, fight corruption. And then service delivery also has to improve. Because if services are being delivered, then and regularly, I don't need to go and tip somebody to get the service done.
All right, Director, just give me 30 seconds or so. Let's quickly take this comments from our viewers. Mwafo Bina says corruption is a social issue, and one way to curb it starts with reorientation and also reward and punishment system. Very key. John says present government is just fighting their perceived enemies, not corruption. Example, Governor Tom of Benue State facing series of probing from EFCC for joining opposition party. Anthony Nnaji says this government is fighting corruption based on party affiliations and is really unhealthy for its citizens. Mwafo says, is the current administration fighting corruption? Big no. Unica Kadi says, the world over to fight crime, we use high-tech in fighting crimes because it's so diversified. But our leaders know if we get to that point, their sins will be in the open. I think that's the much I can take. So many comments coming through, but keep them coming. Tweet me at Nancy Ilo. Follow me on Twitter and send your comments. Also, Moneyline AIT. Many thanks for joining us on the show. You know, this topic is such a huge topic that it would. It has a lot of things attached to it. But many thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, I've been speaking with Jaye Gaskiya, who is the convener at Take Back Nigeria. We've been looking at the Corruption Perception Index that was released by Transparency International yesterday. I know it's still an ongoing discussion, so we'll continue to keep our eyes on it. Let's see. I don't know if this administration has brought out a statement to that. I haven't seen, just like they did in 2017. They will. Let's keep our fingers crossed. All right, many thanks for joining us on the show. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Nnaji. I'll see you.